Hey fish friends, how's it going? I hope you're doing well. My name is Zenzo from Tazawa Tanks. Now, for those of you that don't know who I am, I have a fish room. I've got a lot of fish tanks. I suffer from what we call multi-tank syndrome. So that means that I am a collector of tanks and I have a lot of fish. So anyway, a lot of you are familiar with this fish room, maybe some of you are not, but this fish room is going to be changing. Now in a recent video, I did share that there are going to be some significant changes down here in this room, and for those of you that maybe saw the aquarium co-op live stream that Corey recently had, you'll know that he is going to be part of that transformation of this room along with Dean. So there is going to be kind of a pimp my fish room kind of thing going on, where they're going to be coming down and spending some time here and making a bunch of changes in some of my tanks. So, or not so much the tanks, but the room itself. So what I thought I would do is just kind of make a short video today and talk about the fish room, kind of what it looks like right now. Not going to talk at all about what's going to happen, although I do kind of have an idea of what we're going to do down here, but I don't know everything. But I am going to show you kind of the way that the room sits now, so that when you see the new fish room, you'll have some kind of understanding of what it was like before and then what the after was like. And then also what I thought I would do is go through by tank and just talk real briefly on each tank. I'm not going to go into detail on the tank and the inhabitants, just maybe like 15 to 20 seconds per tank to let you know what's in there, any kind of update, and yep, that's about it. So let's go ahead and check it out and see what the room looks like now and look at some of the tanks. So maybe before we talk about the tanks themselves, let's talk about the room. This is a basement off of my garage with a concrete floor, so that helps with spills and things like that. And this wall kind of back along here, all this back wall is a concrete wall, and then this is a wall that I built, and I made a video about this wall that I built recently, or a few months ago, and I'll put a link of that above. But anyway, as you can see, I've got all this insulation. This is helping to retain the heat in the room. So what I do, instead of putting heaters in individual tanks, is I heat the room itself, which allows me to have multiple tanks in here without having to plug in heaters. Now, a lot of you have mentioned in the past that this kind of looks like a walk-in refrigerator and it's not the most pleasing, and I can understand that, but it is very functional. The other thing that I do have down here is I've got a kind of a myriad of lights. So, some tanks have like lights with bulbs in them. Some of them are LED lights. And then I've got like all these DIY pendant lights that I just got from the hardware store and just hung up. So, in some cases, maybe not so good, where in other areas I do have some nicer lights, but kind of a mixture of multiple things. So yeah, maybe not the most aesthetically pleasing. So let's go through some of the tanks here, and I'm just going to briefly talk about them. We'll start here with the 125. This is my Oscar tank. I have 3 tiger Oscars in here, 1 albino and 2 regular. There are some other fish in here. There are some Bottia loaches, there are some Synodontis catfish, and there's a pleco in there. So they kind of all harmoniously live in here. And these are the 2 younger Oscars. They are growing very rapidly. Just about 5 months ago, they were very, very small, and they've almost probably tripled in size by now. This is a tank that's a Tanganyika tank where the fish hide most of the time. They're Brichardi in here, so not much to see. Down below, these are just some fry that I'm growing out. These are the jewel cichlid fry. Over here, this is a grow out tank for my African cichlids. I used to do a lot of breeding with African cichlids. I'm not doing that so much anymore. This big male here is actually one that I bred a long time ago. He was upstairs, but he was a horrible tank boss, and he was beating up the other fish, so now he's down here and everyone's kind of cool. So anyway, I am growing these fish out. Obviously, there's a lot of fish in here. There is a lot of filtration. There's a FX4, there's sponge filters. I do water changes, significant water changes, etc. Down here, I've got my West African Congo tank. So these are Congo tetras, softer water, leaf litter, wood, etc. I do have some floating duckweed. One, because the fish actually eat it, and then also because it does provide some cover and makes the fish feel safe. Above that's probably one of my favorite tanks down here. This is a 75-gallon acrylic tank with a Pseudotropheus solosi, where the males are blue and the females are yellow. I have one dominant male, I've got one subdominant male, I've got 3 adult females, and then a bunch of fry, as you can see, so they are all growing out. Over here we have a couple of my shell dweller tanks. These are the Neolamprologus multifasciatus. These are just a bunch of fry that I'm growing out. And a 20-gallon tank here. Here I have the gold ocellatus. I do need to get a couple of more here because I'm not sure the ratio that I have of females to males, and I'm hoping that they'll spawn. But lots of shells, rocks, hiding places. Down below, this is a brackish tank that I recently set up with a 3D background. You can see the air plants that I have that are kind of growing in the background there. I made that. So this background is a DIY background that I made and made a series of videos on that. Currently I've got a bunch of night gobies in there and they like to hide. There's one down there, just went back in the rock. But they kind of like to hide in the rocks and caves. I do have a puffer that's going to be going in this tank, so we'll be talking about that shortly. This is my live bearer tank, a bunch of guppies that I have in a planted tank down here in the fish room. So kind of fun to just grow stuff. I grow a bunch of moss and take the moss and throw it in other tanks and grow guppies, etc. So kind of fun. This tank is my Indian mudskipper tank, and I've made many videos about this tank. I'll put a link above, but these are Indian mudskippers, and they are very, very fun to watch and interact with. And then I've got bumblebee gobies down below. This is also brackish water, which is a mixture of fresh and salt water. Down below, just some holding tanks. These are 10-gallon tanks. I've got some bettas in these two, and then I've got some more shell dwellers in here. These are ones that I sell and make those available at auction, etc. So, moving right along. This is another Tanganyikan tank. This is my Julidochromis tank. So there's a bunch of Julies in here. These are the Transcriptus Tanzania, and there are a bunch. They kind of like to hide amongst the coral and the dry rock that I have in here. But very, very fun East African fish. There are some Calvus in here too, but they like to hide behind the rocks, so we don't see them very often. Another one of my favorite tanks is my African mudskipper tank. This is a 75-gallon brackish water system. There you can see the African mudskippers are kind of sitting on top of the island that I made, and really, really fun fish here. So they've got this island here. They've got this whole beach area that I made. You can see there's another one. If I can focus past all the water drops. I wasn't really prepared to, there we go, get some B-roll footage, so I didn't wipe the glass. But really fun. They kind of hop around and eat a lot. There is a puffer in here. This is my figure 8 puffer. And again, this is brackish water as well. So a mixture of fresh water and salt water. Down below I've got my blackwater tank. This is another South American tank that I have with some Bolivian rams, some gold neon tetras, some albino plecos in there. So just kind of a fun little 40-gallon tank that I have. Over here underneath that Tanganyikan tank, I had mentioned earlier that I have a new puffer. There is my new puffer. This is a green spotted puffer. Let's see if I can get him to focus on. There we go. And this one is going to go in that other 3D background tank with the night gobies. So currently in quarantine, and it has been eating well, eating snails and bloodworms and freeze-dried shrimp. And right now it's just watching it, making sure there's no parasites. Did run some medication through it, and also acclimating it to brackish water. And then it will be going in the other tank. A couple more tanks that I have down here. I've got my 75-gallon Mbuna tank. Yes, it is very overstocked, and I've made videos about this explaining why I like the overstocked process and how it works for me. But anyway, this is all filtered by sponge filters, and there are quite a few of them in here, and I just do frequent water changes, and I use the plants there, the pothos, to suck up the nitrates. And then down below I've got my breeding pair of 5-star generals. These are the West African cichlids, part of the jewel cichlid family. And really a beautiful fish. Look at that color there. You can see if I can get focus there. We can see nice color there on the male. But these have spawned for me. So that tank that I showed you earlier, these are the parents. So there you have it, just kind of a real quick overview of the fish room as it sits now, the fish, the tanks, the room itself. Anyway, just wanted to give that kind of an update because a lot of you have asked to see my fish room. And since it's going to be changing here in the next week, in fact, a week from today, this room will be totally different. So anyway, make sure to stop back by and check it out and see what's going on. If you like my shirt, this multi-tank syndrome shirt, you can get this at Aqua Freaks. I'll put a link down below. So they were very kind to send me a bunch of gear, and this is one of their shirts. So anyway, that's all I had for now. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. Catch you on the next one.